Let's get a bit more on this now. We're joined by Dr. Leyla Hannbeck, who's a pharmacist and also the Chief Executive of the Association of Independent Multiple Pharmacies. Very good title, long one as well. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Let's start with that hay fever problem, because this is another. We seem to be talking about this quite a bit at the moment. Pharmacies companies lacking the ingredients to make some of the medicines which we use a lot. What's the problem?
There are a series of problems. In pharmacies, we are really struggling at the moment in terms of getting the supply. We're managing it, but it takes a lot of time having to phone around and trying to find the right medicine for our patients. And this is coming back to a series of things. For example, the active ingredients not being available. Pandemic hasn't certainly helped. But also we need to look at, in terms of our own supply chain, are there anything within the supply chain that could be improved? Because we've also obviously had the HRT issues as well. So we shouldn't be in a situation when as soon as demand goes up, supply is not there. So we need to look at what could be improved within the supply chain.
And is there a problem with all types of hay fever remedies? Because obviously, for anyone who takes hay fever remedies, there are some that can make you a bit sleepy and some that don't. So is everything unavailable or in short supply?
No, there are various different types of hay fever medicines available at the moment. So we don't want people to be worried that they're going to be completely left without hay fever medicines. But some of the common ones are out of stock, unfortunately. But we are looking into ways of making sure that during the summer season, hopefully we get them in stock. But we don't know when it's going to be available at this point.
How do you do that? Is it a case of sort of leaning on various people to get that stock to you?
What we normally do is we've got conversations going on with the Department of Health and the government. So we are raising the issues in terms of what's going on within pharmacies and the demand. And we are really relying on them as well to help us. Making sure that we get the supply coming in as soon as possible for our patients.
We're coming into kind of peak hay fever time, aren't we? Lots of children about to sit exams. I know, in schools it can be a real problem at this time of year. Kids trying to get through stuff and obviously suffering with hay fever. Are you finding people coming into the pharmacies quite stressed?
Yes, this has been going on for some time now, and pharmacists and their teams are also very stressed as well, seeing our patients stressed. In terms of not having the right medicines, and what we are asking as well is for us to be able to substitute medicines when it's possible to do so. But we need to look at the underlying issues as well in terms of the supply chain. Is everything functioning? The active ingredients and all of that coming together, making this whole journey, difficult, which we need to look into really going forward.
You touched on HRT as well, which is something we spoke about. Was it last week or the week before last?
Both, I think, yeah.
And is there a concern in your industry that there are going to be other sort of drugs and medications which people regularly need that could be in the same situation in the weeks and months ahead?
So we're seeing at the moment that as soon as demand for something goes up, that we're struggling to get the supplies. So that's why we need to have those important conversations and communications with the department, with the government, but also with manufacturers and suppliers to make sure that things go right moving forward. Because we don't want to be in this situation every time that we have to really struggle and patients being stressed.
I know you're not here to make political statements, but you mentioned that the pandemic has had an influence. Because this is also a concern, wasn't it, when Brexit was spoken about medical contracts. Is that part of the problem as well?
Well, as part of Brexit, we did a lot of preparations in terms of making sure that medicines were flowing through. So we had, for example, some protocols in place to make sure that if something happened with the medicine, that we could substitute that. But Brexit and the preparations from that, but then pandemic hit and that as well, all kind of led to supply chain being hit a little bit. And so we're trying to recover from that. But at the moment, it is very difficult. And we do need the support from everyone to communicate and get together to make sure that we get the medicines for our patients.
And are you expecting more of a run on hay fever remedies today?
People are
We're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about it. But what I don't want to do is I don't want people to panic that there's not going to be no hay fever medicines.
Yeah.
We will do everything we can to make sure that it's available. I'm a hay fever sufferer myself, so gosh, it's...
You know what it's like.
I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in this morning and explaining the situation, which I'm sure lots of people who are waking up this morning with, again, high pollen counts will be concerned, won't they? So thank you.
Thank you. 27 minutes past